He didn't say those words out loud. He didn't have to. In the ancient Near East, there was one thing every person understood without question. You did not ask for your inheritance while your father was still breathing. That wasn't just rude. That wasn't just disrespectful. That was the cultural equivalent of looking your father dead in the eyes and saying, "I wish you were already gone. You are worth more to me dead than alive. You are nothing to me but a transaction I've been waiting to complete." And yet, that is exactly what the younger son did. He walked up to his father, a man who had spent decades building something from the ground up, a man who had calloused his hands so his sons would have soft ones, a man who had stayed up through droughts and storms and hard seasons so that one day his boys would inherit something beautiful. And the younger son looked at all of that, looked at all of him, and said, "Give me my share. Not someday. Not when the time is right. Now." The room must have gone silent. The servants who overheard must have frozen mid-step. Because what this boy just did wasn't just offensive, it was a kind of death. In that culture, the moment you divided an estate, the father was symbolically gone. The son had just held a funeral for a man still standing in front of him. And here's the part that should wreck you. The father gave it to him. He didn't argue. He didn't scream. He didn't throw him out of the house for the audacity. The Bible says he divided his living between his two sons. He liquidated what he'd built. He turned years of labor into coins and handed them over to a boy who had just spat in his face with a smile. Why? Why would any father do that? Because love, real love, does not chain people to itself. Real love opens the door even when it knows the person walking through it is walking toward destruction. The father knew. He had to have known. You don't raise a child without learning the shape of their soul. He could see the restlessness in his son's eyes, the hunger for something the farm could never give him, the dangerous belief that freedom was something you found away from home rather than within yourself. He knew, and he let him go anyway. Now the son has the money, and the money feels like power. It feels like wings. He packs his bags with the kind of excitement that only the young and the foolish carry, the kind that has never been disappointed enough to know better. He doesn't say a long goodbye. He doesn't linger. He doesn't look back at his father's face as he walks down that road, and that detail alone should break your heart. He goes to a far country. The text says far deliberately. This isn't a short trip. This isn't a season abroad. This is a burning of bridges, a deliberate burial of everything behind him. The farther he got from home, the more real his freedom felt. Every mile was another piece of his father he shed like dead skin. Every new face he met was someone who didn't know his name, didn't know his past, didn't know the man he'd just emotionally killed to get here. And the money starts to flow. The Bible uses two words: riotous living. Wild, wasteful, unrestrained. We can fill in the blanks. The parties, the women, the wine, the kind of nights that feel infinite at midnight and absolutely hollow by morning. He becomes popular the way money always makes people popular. Everyone wants to be near the person holding the cup, and everyone will vanish the moment the cup runs dry. He doesn't think about his father. He doesn't let himself. Because thinking about his father would mean feeling something, and feeling something might mean going back, and going back would mean admitting that the story he told himself, the one about freedom and adventure and a life more exciting than the one he was born into, was a lie he paid for with someone else's blood. So he drinks deeper. He spends faster. He laughs louder. Until one morning, he reaches into his coat for the money and finds nothing. Not less. Not a little. Nothing. And at that exact same moment, as if the universe had been waiting for this precise alignment of poverty and hubris, a famine hits the land. Food becomes scarce. The friends disappear. The parties stop. The doors that were once flung open for him are now shut so fast he can feel the wind of them closing against his face. He is alone. He is broke. He is in a foreign land with a foreign name, and no one in the world who knows who he really is. And he is starving. This is where scene 1 ends, not with a crash, but with a silence. The silence of a young man sitting in the wreckage of every choice he ever made. Finally still enough to hear the thing that's been trying to reach him all along. Hunger is a brutal teacher. It doesn't lecture you. It doesn't give you a warning or a pamphlet or a grace period. It simply arrives, slowly at first, then all at once. And it dismantles every illusion you've ever built about yourself until there is nothing left but the raw, animal truth of who you are and what you actually need. The younger son needed a job. Any job. So he did what desperate people do. He swallowed whatever was left of his pride and went to work for a citizen of that far country. And this citizen, perhaps sensing the boy's desperation, perhaps not caring at all, sent him to feed pigs. For a Jewish boy, this was the bottom. Not just the bottom of the social ladder, the bottom of the universe. Pigs were unclean animals in Jewish law. To touch one was to be defiled. To feed one was to be lower than the animal itself. Every day this young man walked out to those pens. Every day he poured out slop and watched them eat. He was being reminded in the most visceral way possible of exactly how far he had fallen. And the cruelest part? He was jealous of the pigs. The Bible says he wanted to fill his stomach with the pods the pigs were eating. Carob pods. Hard, bitter, barely digestible. Not fit for a person. And no one gave him anything. Not his employer. Not a neighbor. Not a stranger on the road. Not one of the so-called friends who had danced with him when his pockets were full. He was invisible now. The money had been the whole of him in their eyes. And here, in this pig pen, something shifts. The Bible marks the moment with a phrase so quietly powerful it almost sneaks past you. He came to himself. Not he came to God. Not he repented. Not he made a vow. He came to himself. As if the real him had been somewhere else this entire time. Locked away behind the noise and the spending and the performing. And the hunger and the humiliation had finally cracked the shell open enough for him to crawl back inside his own chest and meet himself again. He starts to think. Maybe for the first time in years, he actually thinks. He thinks about his father's farm. He thinks about the hired servants, not even family, just workers, who have more than enough bread. He thinks about the warmth of that kitchen, the weight of that table, the sound of that house when it was full. And he is sitting in a pig pen in a foreign country with mud on his hands and hunger in his stomach and no one in the world who cares whether he lives or dies. The math isn't complicated. And so he makes a plan. Not a proud plan. Not an ambitious one. He's not coming home to reclaim his status. He's not coming home to be restored to his former position. He rehearses the speech on his cracked lips, quietly, to the empty field, and every word of it is soaked in genuine brokenness. Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. Read that again. He is not asking to be a son. He has decided he has forfeited that right. He just wants a room and a wage and a chance to repay what he destroyed. He wants to earn his way back into a house he burned down. That's not restoration talking. That's shame talking. And shame, even when it leads you in the right direction, still doesn't fully understand grace. He gets up. And this is the part that takes everything he has. Because getting up means moving. And moving means going back. And going back means facing the man he humiliated. It means walking up that same road he sprinted down when he left. Except now he's thin and dirty and wearing rags and everyone in the village will see him. In that culture, a son who shamed his father so publicly would not just be facing his father. he would be facing the entire community. Men would gather. Words would be said. Rocks could be thrown. He knows all of this. He gets up anyway. Because rock bottom has a gift no mountaintop can give you. It kills your options one by one until the only one left is the truth. And the truth was this: he needed his father. Not his father's money. Not his father's farm. His father. He had tried to replace him with parties. He had tried to replace him with strangers. He had tried to replace him with freedom and distance and noise. And all of it had left him emptier than when he started. Now, with nothing left to lose and no performance left to give, he finally understood what he had thrown away. He starts walking home. Every step is a kind of dying. Every mile he retraces is a mile of pride he has to bury in the dust behind him. He rehearses his speech again and again, not because he's trying to get it perfect, but because he's terrified. He is not the boy who left anymore. He doesn't know what he is. He just knows where he needs to go. And the road is long. And the sun is hot. And his feet are bare. And he is so hungry and so tired and so completely undone. But he keeps walking. Because somewhere at the end of this road is a man he once treated like a dead man. And this boy, this broken, hollow, starving boy, is about to find out exactly what kind of father he actually has. The father had been watching the road. You need to understand this. The text doesn't say the father happened to look up. It doesn't say a servant spotted the boy and ran to tell him. It says the father saw him when he was yet a great way off. That is not a coincidence. That is a man who never stopped looking. A man who, every morning, walked out to the edge of his property and stood there and stared down that road. A man who had not closed the chapter. A man who refused to stop hoping. Days had passed, then weeks, then months, maybe years. And every single one of those mornings, he stood there and he looked. Through seasons. Through the whispers of neighbors who had heard what his son did. Through the silent judgment of the community that expected him to write the boy off, to close the gate, to restore his dignity by disowning the disgrace. Through his older son's quiet resentment. Through all of it, he looked. Because that is what love does when it has no other options. It watches. And then, one ordinary morning on an ordinary road, something moves in the distance that makes his heart stop. He knows that walk. He would know it in the dark, from a mile away, through rain and fog and years of absence. He has replayed it in his mind 10,000 times. The way his boy moved, the shape of him at a distance, the particular way he carried himself. And even though this figure is thin now, even though the stride is slower and heavier and broken in ways it wasn't before, he knows. That is my son. And the father does something that should rewrite everything you think you know about dignity and love and what it means to be a father. He runs. In the ancient Near East, a man of wealth and status did not run. Not for anything. Running meant lifting your robe, exposing your legs, abandoning your composure. It was considered deeply undignified for a man of his standing. His neighbors would see. His servants would see. Everyone would see a wealthy landowner sprinting down a road like a child. He didn't care. He ran. He ran because his son was alive and coming home, and every second between them was a second too long. He ran because dignity meant nothing to him compared to this. He ran because he had been standing at that road waiting for this moment, and now that it was here, he was not going to walk toward it. He was going to close the distance with everything he had. And he reaches the boy, this filthy, hollow, rehearsing his speech boy, and he doesn't wait for the apology. He doesn't hold him at arm's length and listen to the confession first. He doesn't say, "Do you have any idea what you put me through?" He doesn't say, "Let's talk about what you did before I decide how to feel about this." He falls on his neck and kisses him, over and over. The word in the original language means he kissed him repeatedly, tenderly, without stopping. This is not a formal greeting. This is a father whose whole body is saying what words cannot hold. You are here. You are here. You are here. And the boy, still trying, still clinging to his speech, still running the script he practiced in the pigpen, begins. Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. The father cuts him off, not with anger, not even with a gentle correction. He just starts giving orders, and each order is a thunderclap of restoration. He calls to his servants with the urgency of someone who has been waiting to say these words for a very long time. Bring the best robe. Put it on him. The best robe. Not a servant's robe. Not a spare garment. The best one. The robe of honor. The kind reserved for distinguished guests. He is covering his son's rags, covering every visible sign of where he's been, with the finest thing in the house. Put a ring on his hand. A ring in that culture was not jewelry. It was a signet ring, a symbol of authority, of identity, of belonging to a family. He is not just welcoming him back. He is reinstating him. He is saying, your name is still your name. You are still my son, not a servant, not a laborer. My son. Put shoes on his feet. Servants went barefoot. Sons wore shoes. This detail is deliberate. The father is drawing a line in the sand against every lie shame had told this boy about who he was. You are not a servant here. You never will be. Kill the fatted calf. Let us eat and be merry. The fatted calf was the prize animal, kept ready for the most important of occasions. This is not a quiet, private reunion. This is a feast. This is a public declaration. He is throwing a celebration loud enough for the whole village to hear. The same village that saw the boy leave. The same village that watched the father's humiliation. The same village that expected punishment. Instead, they're getting a party. And the father says it himself, with a rawness that strips every theological argument down to its bones. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. Dead and alive. Lost and found. There is no in-between in the Father's heart. There is no probationary period, no proving himself, no working his way back up from servant to son. The moment his feet hit that road and turned toward home, he was already being celebrated. The music starts. The dancing starts. The whole house comes alive. And outside, standing in the field, the older son hears it. He hears the music. He hears the laughter. And something cold and old tightens in his chest. He calls a servant over and asks what's happening. And when he hears, his face hardens. His brother has come home. His father has thrown a party. And he will not go in. The older son stands outside that feast like a man standing outside a house he built with his own hands and being told he cannot enter. He has been here the whole time. He never left. He never squandered anything. He never asked for anything. He has been faithful and steady and present through every one of those mornings his father stood at the road and ached. And where was his party? His father hears he won't come in, and the father goes out to him, too. Just as he ran to one son, he goes to the other. Because he has two sons, and he has not forgotten this one. The older son's grievance spills out in a torrent of exhausted honesty. These many years I've served you. I never once disobeyed you. And you never gave me even a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came back, this son who devoured your living with harlots, you killed a fatted calf for him. This son of yours, he cannot even say my brother. The distance in those words is its own kind of far country, and the father doesn't scold him for it. He doesn't dismiss it. He says something devastating in its gentleness. Son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. Everything I have is yours. It has always been yours. The feast, The ring, the robe. You didn't need them to prove anything because you never lost what they represent. But your brother, he was dead. And he is alive. He was lost. And now he is found. How could I not celebrate? The story ends there, right in the middle of the older son's silence, right before we find out what he decides. And that is not an accident, because the storyteller wants you to be the one standing outside. He wants you to decide what you'll do with the sound of music coming from inside. Will you walk through the door? Will you let someone else's restoration become your own joy? Or will you stay outside, holding your ledger of faithfulness, and miss the feast that was always meant for you too? The Father is still out there with you, waiting. The door is open, and the only question that has ever mattered in this story is whether you will go in.